Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications. Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications, Digital European Cordless Telecommunications, usually known by the acronym DECT, is a standard primarily used for creating cordless telephone systems. It originated in Europe, where it is the universal standard, replacing earlier cordless phone standards such as 900 MHz C-tone and CT2. Beyond Europe, it has been adopted by Australia and most countries in Asia and South America. North American adoption was delayed by United States radio frequency regulations. This forced development of a variation of DECT called DECT 6.0, using a slightly different frequency range, which makes these units incompatible with systems intended for use in other areas, even from the same manufacturer. DECT has almost universally replaced other standards in most countries where it is used, with the exception of North America. DECT was originally intended for fast roaming between networked base stations, and the first DECT product was Net3 Wireless Alain. However, its most popular application is single-cell cordless phones connected. DECT can also be used for purposes other than cordless phones, such as baby monitors and industrial sensors. The ULE Alliance's DECT ULE and its A-Chain FUN protocol are variants tailored for home security, automation, and the Internet of Things IoT. The DECT standard includes the Generic Access Profile GAP, a common interoperability profile for simple telephone capabilities, which most manufacturers implement. GAP conformance enables DECT handsets and bases from different manufacturers to interoperate at the most basic level of functionality, that of making and receiving calls. Japan uses its own DECT variant, NG-DECT, which is supported by the DECT Forum. The new generation DECT NG-DECT standard, marketed as CATIC by the DECT Forum, provides a common set of advanced capabilities for handsets and base stations. CATIC allows interchangeability across IP DECT base stations and handsets from different manufacturers while maintaining backward compatibility with GAP equipment. It also requires mandatory support for wideband audio. Standards history. The DECT standard was developed by ETSI in several phases, the first of which took place between 1988 and 1992, when the first round of standards were published. These were the ETS 300-175 series in 9 parts, defining the air interface, and ETS 300-176 defining how the units should be type approved. A technical report, ETR-178, was also published to explain the standard. Subsequent standards were developed and published by ETSI to cover interoperability profiles and standards for testing. Named Digital European Cordless Telephone, at its launch by CEPT in November 1987, its name was soon changed to Digital European Cordless Telecommunications, following a suggestion by Enrico Tossato of Italy to reflect its broader range of application including data services. In 1995, due to its more global usage, the name was changed from European to Enhanced. DECT is recognized by the ITU as fulfilling the IMT-2000 requirements and thus qualifies as a 3G system. Within the IMT-2000 group of technologies, DECT is referred to as IMT-2000 frequency time IMT-FT. DECT was developed by ETSI but has since been adopted by many countries all over the world. The original DECT frequency band 1880-1900 MHz is used in all countries in Europe. Outside Europe, it is used in most of Asia, Australia, and South America. In the United States, the Federal Communications Commission in 2005 changed channelization and licensing costs in a nearby band 1920-1930 MHz, or 1.9 GHz, known as Unlicensed Personal Communications Services UPS, allowing DECT devices to be sold in the U.S. with only minimal changes. These channels are reserved exclusively for voice communication applications and therefore are less likely to experience interference from other wireless devices, such as baby monitors and wireless networks. The new generation DECT NG-DECT standard was first published in 2007. It was developed by ETSI with guidance from the Home Gateway Initiative through the DECT Forum to support IP-DECT functions in home gateway/IP-PBX equipment. The ETSI TS102-527 series comes in 5 parts and covers wideband audio and mandatory interoperability features between handsets and base stations. They were preceded by an explanatory technical report, ETSI TR 102-570. The DECT Forum maintains the CAT-IC trademark and certification program CAT-IC Wideband Voice Profile 1.0 and Interoperability Profiles 2.0/2.1 are based on the relevant parts of ETSI TS 102-527. The DECT Ultra-Low Energy DECT ULE standard was announced in January 2011, and the first commercial products were launched later that year by Dialog Semiconductor. The standard was created to enable home automation, security, healthcare, and energy monitoring applications that are battery-powered. Like DECT, DECT ULE standard uses the 1.9 GHz band and so suffers less interference than Zigbee, Bluetooth, or Wi-Fi from microwave ovens, which all operate in the unlicensed 2.4 GHz ISM band. DECT ULE uses a simple star network topology, so many devices in the home are connected to a single control unit. A new low-complexity audio codec, LC3+, has been added as an option to the 2019 revision of the DECT standard. This codec is designed for high-quality voice and music applications and supports scalable narrowband, wideband, super wideband, and full-band coding, with sample rates of 816, 24, 32, and 48 kHz and audio bandwidth of up to 20 kHz. DECT 2020 new radio protocol was published in July 2020. It defines a new physical interface based on cyclic prefix, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing CP, often capable of up to 1.2 Gbps transfer rate with QAM-1020. The updated standard supports multi-antenna MIMO and beamforming, FEC channel coding, and hybrid automatic repeat request. It defines 17 radio channel frequencies in the range from 450 MHz up to 5875 MHz, and channel bandwidths of 1728, 3456, or 6912 kHz. Direct communication between end devices is possible with a mesh network topology. ETSI proposed the updated DECT 2020 protocol as a candidate for the upcoming IMT 2020 standard for use in massive machine-type communications (MNTC) industry automation, ultra-reliable low-latency latency communications (URLC), and professional wireless audio applications with point-to-point or multicast. OFMA and SC-FDMA modulations were also considered by the NG-DECT committee. OpenD is an open-source framework designed to provide a complete software implementation of DECT ULE protocols on reference hardware from Dialog Semiconductor and DSP Group. The project is maintained by the DECT Forum. Application. The DECT standard originally envisaged 3 major areas of application: domestic cordless telephony, using a single base station to connect one or more handsets to the public telecommunications network; enterprise premises cordless PABCs; and wireless LAN, using many base stations for coverage. Calls continue as users move between different coverage cells through a mechanism called handover. Calls can be both within the system and to the public telecommunications network. Public access, using large numbers of base stations to provide high-capacity building or urban area coverage as part of a public telecommunications network. The enterprise PABS market had some success, and all the major PABS vendors have offered DECT access options. The public access application did not succeed since public cellular networks rapidly outcompeted DECT by coupling their ubiquitous coverage with large increases in capacity and continuously falling costs. There has been only one major installation of DECT for public access, In early 1998, Telecom Italia launched a wide-area DECT network, known as FIDO, after much regulatory delay, covering major cities in Italy. The service was promoted for only a few months and, having peaked at 142,000 subscribers, was shut down in 2001. DECT has been used for wireless local loop as a substitute for copper pairs in the last mile in countries such as India and South Africa. By using directional antennas and sacrificing some traffic capacity, cell coverage could extend to over 10 kilometers, 6.2 mi. One example is the cordless standard. The first data application for DECT was Net3 Wireless Alliance System by Olivetti, launched in 1993 and discontinued in 1995. A precursor to Wi-Fi, Net3 was a microcellular data-only network with fast roaming between base stations and 520 kbps transmission rates. Data applications such as electronic cash terminals, traffic lights, and remote door openers also exist, but have been eclipsed by Wi-Fi 3G and 4G, which compete with DECT for both voice and data. DECT 6.0. DECT 6.0 is a North American marketing term for DECT devices manufactured for the United States and Canada operating at 1.9 GHz. The 6.0 does not equate to a spectrum band. It was decided the term DECT 1.9 might have confused customers who equate larger numbers such as the 2.4 and 5.8 in existing 2.4 GHz and 5.8 GHz cordless telephone. The term was coined by Rick Krupka, marketing director at Siemens, and the DECT USA Working Group/Siemens ICM. In North America, DECT suffers from deficiencies in comparison to DECT elsewhere, since the UPS band 1920-1930 MHz is not free from heavy interference. Bandwidth is half as wide as that used in Europe 1880-1900 MHz. The 4 MW average transmission power reduces range compared to the 10 MW permitted in Europe, and the commonplace lack of GAP compatibility among U.S. vendors binds customers. Before 1.9 GHz band was approved by the FCC in 2005, DECT could only operate in unlicensed 2.4 GHz and 900 MHz Region 2 ISM bands. Some users of unidentified DECT 2.4 GHz phones reported interoperability issues with Wi-Fi equipment. North American DECT 6.0 products may not be used in Europe, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Africa, as they cause and suffer from interference with the local cellular networks. Use of such products is prohibited by European telecommunications authorities, Ta Telecommunications Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka, and the Independent Communication Authority of South Africa. European DECT products may not be used in the United States and Canada, as they likewise cause and suffer from interference with American and Canadian cellular networks, and use is prohibited by the Federal Communications Commission and Industry Canada. DECT 8.0 HD is a marketing designation for North American DECT devices certified with CAT 2.0 multi-line profile. NG-DECT/CATIC. Cordless Advanced Technology Internet and Quality CAT. It is a certification program maintained by the DECT Forum. It is based on new generation DECT NG-DECT series of standards from ETSI. NG-DECT/CAT contains features that expand the generic GAP profile with mandatory support for high-quality wideband voice, enhanced security, calling party identification, multiple lines, parallel calls, and similar functions to facilitate VoIP calls through SIP and H.323 protocols. There are several CAT profiles which define supported voice features. CAT 1.0 HD Voice ETSI 102.527-1 wideband audio calling party line and name identification clip/CNAT. CAT 2.0 multi-line ETSI 102.527-3 multiple lines, line name, call waiting, call transfer, phone book call list, DTMF tones, headset, Settings. CATIC 2.1 Green ETCTS 102.5-5 Three-party conference. Call intrusion. Caller blocking CLR. Answering machine control. SMS. Power management. CATIC data light data services. Software upgrade over the air SUOTA ETCTS 102.5-4 CATIC IoT, Smart Home Connectivity IoT, with DECT Ultra Low Energy ETCTS 102.939 CATIC allows any DECT handset to communicate with a DECT base from a different VEN, providing full interoperability. CATIC 2.0/2.1 feature set is designed to support IP DECT-based stations found in office IP-PBX and home gateways. Technical features. Technical properties. ETSI standards documentation ETSI EN 300-175 parts 1.8 DECT, ETSI EN 300-444 GAP and ETSI TS 102-527 parts 1.5 NG-DECT prescribe the following technical properties. Audio codec. Mandatory. 32 kbit/SG 726. ADCOM narrowband. 64 kbit/SG 722 subband ADCOM wideband. Optional. 64 kbit/SG 711 MLAW/ALAW PCM narrowband. 32 kbit/SG 729.1 wideband. 32 kbit/SMPG-4 ERACLD wideband. 64 kbit/SMPG-4 ERACLD super wideband. Frequency. The DECT physical layer specifies RF carriers for the frequency ranges 1880 MHz to 1980 MHz and 2010 MHz to 2025 MHz, as well as 902 MHz to 928 MHz and 2400 MHz to 24,835 MHz ISM band. The most common spectrum allocation is 1880 MHz to 1900 MHz outside Europe, 1900 MHz to 1920 MHz, and 1910 MHz to 1930 MHz spectrum is available in several countries. 1880-1900 MHz in Europe, as well as South Africa, Asia, Hong Kong, Australia, and New Zealand. 1786-1792 MHz in Korea, 1880-1895 MHz in Taiwan, 1893-1906 MHz NG-DECT in Japan, 1900-1920 MHz in China until 2003, 1910-1920 MHz in Brazil, 1910-1930 MHz in Latin America, 1920-1930 MHz DECT 6.0 in the United States and Canada. Carriers 1.728 MHz spacing. 10 channels in Europe and Latin America. 8 channels in Taiwan. 5 channels in the US, Brazil, Japan. 3 channels in Korea. Time slots 2x12 up and downstream. Channel allocation. Dynamic. Average transmission power 10 MW 250 MW peak in Europe and Japan, 4 MW 100 MW peak in the US. Physical layer. The DECT physical layer uses FDMA/TDMA access with TDD. Gaussian frequency shift keying GFSK modulation is used. The binary 1 is coded with a frequency increase by 288 kHz and the binary 0 with frequency decrease of 288 kHz. With high-quality connections, 2, 4, or 8-level differential PSK, modulation dBPSK, DQPSK, or date PSK, which is similar to QAM-2, QAM-4, and QAM-8, can be used to transmit 1, 2, or 3 bits per each symbol. QAM-16 and QAM-64 modulations with 4 and 8 bits per symbol can be used for user data B field only, with resulting transmission speeds of up to 5068 Mbit/s. DECT provides dynamic channel selection and assignment. The choice of transmission frequency and time slot is always made by the mobile terminal. In case of interference in the selected frequency channel, the mobile terminal, possibly from suggestion by the base station, can initiate either intra-cell handover. For this purpose, DECT devices scan all idle channels at regular 30s intervals to generate a received signal strength indication RSSI list. When a new channel is required, the mobile terminal PP or base station FP selects a channel with the minimum interference from the RSSI list. The maximum allowed power for portable equipment as well as base stations is 250 MW. A portable device radiates an average of about 10 MW during a call, as it is only using one of 24 time slots to transmit. In Europe, the power limit was expressed as effective radiated power ERP, rather than the more commonly used equivalent isotropically radiated power IRP, permitting the use of high-gain directional antennas to produce much higher IRP and hence long ranges. Data link layer. The DECT media access control layer controls the physical layer and provides connection-oriented, connectionless, and broadcast services to the higher layers. The DECT data link layer uses Link Access Protocol Control LAP, a specially designed variant of the ISDN data link protocol called LAPD. They are based on HDLC. GFSK modulation uses a bit rate of 1152 kbit/s with a frame of 10 ms 11,520 bits, which contains 24 time slots. Each slot contains 480 bits, some of which are reserved for physical packets, and the rest is guard space. Slots 011 are always used for downlink FP to PP, and slots 1223 are used for uplink PP to FP. There are several combinations of slots and corresponding types of physical packets with GFSK modulation. Basic packet P32 420 or 424 bits full slot, used for normal speech transmission. User data B field contains 320 bits. Low capacity packet P0 96 bits at the beginning of the time slot short slot. This packet only contains 64-bit header, a field used as a dummy bearer to broadcast base station identification when idle. Variable capacity packet P0 100 plus J or 104 plus J bits, either 2/2 slots 0 equals J equals 136 or long slot 137 equals J equals 856. User data B field contains J bits. 64J equals 640, 67J equals 672 long slot, used by NG-DECT/CAT IC wideband voice and data. High capacity packet PATI 900 or 904 bits, double slot. This packet uses 2 time slots and always begins in an even time slot. The B field is increased to 800 bits. The 420/424 bits of a GFSK basic packet P32 contain the following fields: 32-bit synchronization code as field, constant bit string AI and 98AH for FP transmission, 55,551,675H for PP transmission, 388 bits data D field, including 64 bits header of field. Control traffic in logical channels C, M, N, P, and Q. 320 bits user data B field. DECT payload, i.e. voice data. 4 bits error checking X field. CRC of the B field. 4 bits collision detection/channel quality Z field, optional. Contains a copy of the X field. The resulting full data rate is 32 kbit/s, available in both directions. Network layer. The DECT network layer always contains the following protocol entities: Call Control CC, Mobility Management optionally, it may also contain others. Call Independent Supplementary Services SIS, Connection-Oriented Message Service COMS, Connectionless Message Service CLMS. All these communicate through a link control entity LC. The call control protocol is derived from ISDN DS-SON, which is a Q931 derived protocol. Many DECT-specific changes have been made. The Mobility Management Protocol includes the management of identities, authentication, location updating, on-air subscription, and key allocation. It includes many elements similar to the GSM protocol, but also includes elements unique to DECT. Unlike the GSM protocol, the DECT network specifications do not define cross-linkages between the operation of the entities, for example, mobility management and call control. The architecture presumes that such linkages will be designed into the interworking unit that connects the DECT access network to whatever mobility-enabled fixed network is involved. By keeping the entities separate, the handset is capable of responding to any combination of entity traffic, and this creates great flexibility in fixed network design without breaking full interoperability. DECT GAP is an interoperability profile for DECT. The intent is that two different products from different manufacturers that both conform not only to the DECT standard, but also to the GAP profile defined within the DECT standard are able to interoperate for basic calling. The DECT standard includes full testing suites for GAP, and GAP products on the market from different manufacturers are in practice interoperable for the basic functions. Security. The DECT media access control layer includes authentication of handsets to the base station using the DECT standard authentication algorithm DSA. When registering the handset on the base, both record a shared 128-bit unique authentication key UAK. The base can request authentication by sending two random numbers to the handset, which calculates the response using the shared 128-bit key. The handset can also request authentication by sending a 64-bit random number to the base, which chooses a second random number, calculates the response using the shared key, and sends it back with the second random number. The standard also provides encryption services with the DECT standard cipher DSC. The encryption is fairly weak, using a 35-bit initialization vector and encrypting the voice stream with 64-bit encryption. While most of the DECT standard is publicly available, the part describing the DECT standard cipher was only available under a non-disclosure agreement to the phone's manufacturers from Etsy. The properties of the DECT protocol make it hard. Unfortunately, very few DECT devices on the market implemented authentication and encryption procedures, and even when encryption was used by the phone, it was possible to implement a man-in-the-middle attack impersonating a DECT base station and revert to unencrypted mode, which allows calls to be listened to, recorded, and rerouted to a different destination. After an unverified report of a successful attack in 2002, members of the NG-DECT org project actually did reverse engineer the DECT standard cipher in 2008, and as of 2010 there has been a viable attack on it that can recover the key. In 2012, an improved authentication algorithm, the DECT standard authentication algorithm 2DSA ATWO, and improved version of the encryption algorithm, the DECT standard cipher 2DSC2, both based on AES 128-bit encryption, were included as optional in the NG-DECT/CATX suite. DECT Forum also launched a DECT security certification program, which mandates the use of previously optional security features in the GAP profile, such as early encryption and base authentication. Profiles, profiles. Various access profiles have been defined in the DECT standard. Public access profile PAP deprecated. Generic access profile GAP ETCEN 300-444. Cordless terminal mobility CTM. Access profile CAP ETCEN 300-824. Data access profiles. DECT packet radio system DPRS ETCEN 300-1649. DECT multimedia access profile DMAP. Multimedia in the local loop access profile MRAP, Open Data Access Profile ODAP, Radio in the local loop RLL access profile RAP ETSI ETS 300-765, Interworking Profiles IWP, DECT/ISTIN Interworking Profile, IAP ETSI EN 300-434, DECT/GSM Interworking Profile GIP ETSI EN 301-242, DECT/UMS interworking profile UIP ETC 101-863 DECT for data networks. Other interoperability profiles exist in the DECT suite of standards, and in particular the DPRS DECT packet radio services bring together a number of prior interoperability profiles for the use of DECT as a wireless LAN and wireless Internet access service. With good range up to 200 meters, 660 FT indoors and 6 kilometers, 3.7 mi using directional antennae outdoors, dedicated spectrum, high interference immunity, open interoperability, and data speeds of around 500 kbps, DECT appeared at one time to be a superior alternative to Wi-Fi. The protocol capabilities built into the DECT networking protocol standards were particularly good at supporting fast roaming in the public space between hotspots operated by competing but connected providers. The first DECT product to reach the market, Olivetti's Net3, was a wireless LAN, and German firms Dosch and Amand and Hoft and Wessel built niche businesses on the supply of data transmission systems based on DECT. However, the timing of the availability of DECT in the mid-1990s was too early to find wide application for wireless data outside niche industrial applications. Whilst contemporary providers of Wi-Fi struggled with the same issues, providers of DECT retreated to the more immediately lucrative market for cordless telephones. A key weakness was also the inaccessibility of the U.S. market due to FCC spectrum restrictions at that time. By the time mass applications for wireless Internet had emerged and the U.S. had opened up to DECT well into the new century, the industry had moved far ahead in terms of performance, and DECT's time as a technically competitive wireless data transport had passed. Health and safety. DECT uses UHF radio, similar to mobile phones, baby monitors, Wi-Fi, and other cordless telephone technologies. The UK Health Protection Agency (HPA) claims that due to a mobile phone's adaptive power ability, a DECT cordless phone's radiation could actually exceed the radiation of a mobile phone. A DECT cordless phone's radiation has an average output power of 10 MW but is in the form of 100 bursts per second of 250 MW, a strength comparable to some mobile phones. Most studies have been unable to demonstrate any link to health effects or have been inconclusive. Electromagnetic fields may have an effect on protein expression in laboratory settings, but have not yet been demonstrated to have clinically significant effects in real-world settings. The World Health Organization has issued a statement on medical effects of mobile phones, which acknowledges that the longer-term effects over several decades require further research. Standards: ETC EN 300 175 v2.8 1 2019-12. Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications DECT Common Interface CI ETC EN 300 175-1. Part 1. Overview. ETC EN 300 175-2. Part 2. Physical Layer PHL. ETC EN 300 175-3. Part 3. Medium Access Control MAC Layers. ETC EN 300 175-4. Part 4. Data Link Control DLC Layer ETC EN 300 175-5. Part 5. Network NWK Layer K layer WK layer K layer K layer K layer WK layer K 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 layer ETC EN 300 175-6. Part 6. Identities and Addressing ETC EN 300 175-7. Part 7. Security Features features ETC EN 300 175-8. Part 8. Speech and Audio Coding and Transmission ETCS 102.939. Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications DECT Ultra Low Energy ULE Machine-to-Machine Communications. ETCS 102.939-1, Vone.3, 1/2017-10. Part 1. Home Automation Network Phase 1. ETCS 102.939-2, Vone.3, 1/2019-1. Part 2. Home Automation Network Phase 2. ETCS 102.527. Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications DECT New Generation DECT. ETCS 102.567 Vone.5, 1/2018-8. Part 1. Wideband Speech. ETCS 102.527 Vone.1, 2007-6. Part 2. Support of Transparent IP Packet Data. ETCS 102.527-3 Vone.7, 1/2019-8. Part 3. Extended Wideband Speech Services, 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 Services. ETCS 102.527 is form, Vone.3, 1/2015-11. Part 4. Light Data Services, Software Update, Over-the-Air SUOTA, Content Downloading and HTTP-based Applications. ETCS 102.527-5 Vone.4, 1/2019-8. Part 5. Additional Features Set NR. 1 for Extended Wideband Speech Services ETCS 103.636 Vone.2, 1/2021-4. DCT-2020 New Radio NR. ETCS 103.636-1. Part 1. Overview, 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 Overview. ETCS 103.636-2. Part 2. Radio Reception and Transmission Requirements. ETCS 103.636-3. Part 3. Physical Layer, ETCS 103.636-4. Part 4. Emacy layer air, AC layer air, AC layer air, AC layer air, C layer air, C layer air, C layer air, C layer air, AC layer air, C 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 layer. ETCS 103.636-5. Part 5. DLC and Convergence Layer Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications DECT. ETCS 103.634 Vone.2, 1/2020-10. Low Complexity Communication Codec plus LC3 plus. ETCN 300-444 V2.5, 1/2017-10. Generic Access Profile GAP. ETCN 300-824 Vone.3, 1/2001-8. Cordless Terminal Mobility CTM Access Profile CAP. ETCN 300-700 V2.2, 1/2018-12. Wireless Relay Station WRS. ETCN 301-649 V2.3, 1/2015-3. DECT Packet Radio Service DPRS. ETCN 300-757 Vone.5, 1/2004-9. Low-rate messaging service LRMs including short messaging service SMS Digital Enhanced Cordless Telecommunications DECT New Generation DECT ETCS 102-841 Vone.5, 1/2014-1. Extended Wideband Speech Services Profile Test Specification PTS and Test Case Library TCL. ETCS 102-843 Vone.1, 1/2014-1. Additional Feature Set NR. 1 for Extended Wideband Speech Services. Profile Test Specification PTS and Test Case Library TCL. XETS 103-158 Volume.1. 1/2014-11. Light Data Services Software Update Over-the-Air Suota Profile, Test Specification PTS and Test Case Library TCL.